All right, so let's look at what we're going to switch up here. So I think what I'll do, right now we have these two grids. One is here. Let me zoom in. There we go. So this is the grid for selecting categories, where you click on one of these rows here called category search grid. And then right now, this is the category grid for the ones that have been selected. So what we're going to do is change this from on click over here. Whenever we click that, it goes select category. Instead of creating a record, what I'm going to do is just create set a variable where I'll take the ones that have been clicked on, or I'll take the one that you clicked on and basically merge that as an array object into an array and a variable, and then we'll use that temporary array that's just in the browser in order to do the to add to that list. So instead of saving it into records, we're just going to manually create an array locally in the browser. So let's change that. So what I'm going to do, I usually do it like this. Let me delete this. I'll put like old here and just leave it, so that way we have both of them. And then I'll go change this to do a new flow. Same name, select category. And so what I'm going to do is set a variable into the parent page, and we'll call it selected categories. I'm going to copy that because I might use it in a little bit. And then what I'm going to do is a merge. So if I scroll down here, there's this one under data, called merge. And the merge key I'll use, let's go with, I need to see the name, if these categories are saved, right? So let's see. So what we'll want is that category field. So I think what we'll do is actually, I'll do it manually. Let's go here. Oop. Sorry, my bad. Reselect that to the correct one. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll do the merge key. We'll call it, we'll just call it category. And the first thing the first data array I'm going to merge in, I'm actually going to write it manually. So this first one is going to be a concatenate, where I'm going to create an array. So the first part of it is an open array and then an open object, and we're going to have one value called category, and then the actual value for that is going to be from current record field value categories category, right? And then we'll close it. So basically what I'm doing is saying the first array that I'm using is this one object where the category is the current category. And then I'm going to add a second data array, which is the variable on the parent page called select categories. So what I'm saying here is go into create a new variable or create a variable on the parent page called selected categories, where I'm going to take the current categories and merge them with this new category record. And the merge key is category. So basically what it's going to do is every time it'll go, if they click on the same one twice, it'll just add it again. We'll change that in a moment to make it to where when they click on it a second time, it'll deselect it, or we can do it inside of the display row, make it show up that way. So let's do I always put this in here too, and I usually will put parent, so that way if I come back in here I can see what it's doing exactly. Okay, so now after it sets that variable into the parent, what I want to do is come back to this page, and on here I'm going to create a new flow. Let's see what you've got here. Create category array. Remove object from array. Okay, so I'll just make a new thing that way. I don't want to mess anything else up that might already be there. So this is, I'm going to make one called add category, add selected category, something like that. Okay. And then before I fill it out, I'm actually going to go back over here, and on this, after I've set the parent, I'm going to run a flow on, we'll make sure to put wait, and I'll run a flow on the create post page. Oops, there. And the flow I'm going to run is the add select category. So basically this will now set that variable into the parent, which is this create post page, and then it's going to run a flow on the create post page for that add select category. So now if I come back over here one more time, go back to here, go add selected category, now I can do something with that. So what I'm going to do is add, do a set value where we're going to set the grid of selected categories, and we're going to get that value for the selected categories from the current page selected categories, because I set it from here into the parent, so the current page, which is the create post page, now has that variable called selected categories. And what I'm doing is basically taking that whole array and just setting it into this grid here. Now, this grid will need to change a little, or this will need to change a little bit. Rather than coming from the field, it's going to come from a variable called category. So because I'm setting this collection, and I'm not setting this with a collection anymore, I'm setting it with this manually generated JSON array where the only property name in there is category. So now when you click on that, it should go add to the variable, and then it will set that variable into here, and then the new binding should take that. So that should already work. Let me do a new create page here. We'll go bubble. We'll go oh, I think I might need to do one other thing. Let's see. We got glide. Yeah, I think I might need to do one other thing. Let me see. All right, so on here, this, I need to change what's called the diff key to category, because it's no longer ID. It defaults to ID because that's by default when you're setting up a data collection on it, it should work that way. I'm also going to go ahead and remove this so that way it doesn't try to bind any data to that. And let me go create post again. Now we can see we're adding as we go through. Okay, so next what I'm going to do is take these, and instead of displaying them like this, I'm going to display them inside of this input, basically. And we'll kind of format them to be little tags, and maybe we'll put a little X on the right or something so that you can click to remove. So let's see, is this an actual input? It is. Okay, so what I'm going to do is put a new element on there. We'll do just a div. And on the div, we'll add some styling. And actually, I might go steal the styling from here, because this is going to have like the padding and those things that I need. So one thing to note here, I'm going into the CSS, and I'm just going to copy and paste that into a new class. Let's change this to be selected categories. And I'm going to make a new class called selected categories outer, something like that. And we're going to do, sorry, I don't need a new property. I need to go to CSS. I'm going to paste that in. Now, some of these things I don't need. Like, I don't need font size. I don't need resize. I don't need outline. But the rest of those are probably good. So now we've got that in there, and then I'm going to take this grid of selected categories and put it inside of there. And then on the grid, we're going to go make some changes to it. Let me see if I have. I don't remember exactly what classes we have in here. Let me see how this is all set up. Okay. I'm going to make a new grid class just for this. So I'm going to call this, oops, I'm going to call this grid selected categories. So now I have this new class, and I'm going to start off, I'll paste what was already in the other grid class, and then we're going to add some new things. So I'm going to make this flex, display flex, and you can see it's already, now it's in a set of rows instead. I'm also going to do a gap of, let's go with 10 pixels. Oops. And then let's do flex wrap. Whoa, hit the wrong key. Flex wrap, and we're gonna wrap like that, so that way if you get too many of them, it'll wrap around. And then the other styling needs to happen on this page. So let's see, we've got a link here. Not sure what this link is for. I'm going to delete this. Oh, and that was actually the wrong one anyways. But this is the one I want. So let's go here, app, list row, cell. So I think what I'll do again is copy all that, make a new class just for this one. We'll call this category selected outer. And we're going to paste that CSS. Okay, so it's looking basically the same. I'm going to add a few things in here. We don't need any of this. Let's see, actually, what else don't we need? Don't need that. We can leave that. But width should not be 33%. Let's just say I'll do it in here. Width, well, I'm going to make auto instead. So now you can see they're in there correctly. Now let's do border of 1 pixel solid, and we'll make it maybe like a lighter gray color here. Maybe like in there, something like that. And then let's do a border radius. And we'll do like, say 8 pixels or something along those lines. So let's see how that looks now. All right, so now it's starting to look like, you know, and I'll let you style this all the way through how you want it. You can go change the borders, you can change all those things. But I think what we'll do is I'll add another little X in here. So when you put the X on it, it'll show up there. I always use feather icons. Feathericons.com here. my computer is lagging like mad because of the screen record, but there's an X icon in here. I'm going to change this to be, make sure it's white, and then, oh, I guess it shouldn't be white. Hang on. That should actually not be white. Let's make it black. So I'll click that. We'll download. Okay. And then now back in here, what I'm going to do is add a new image or a new element, an image element into this. And it's going to show huge at first because it's like that other image. We'll go to the media library. We're going to upload the X. Oh, I wonder if I already have one in here. I do not. I have a plus, but I don't have an X. The other way we could do is we could use the plus and then do a rotate on it. I think I'll actually do that because then it's just fewer images inside of my project. I'm going to remove this class because I don't really want that there. And then I'm going to add just some inline. Let's see, what is it? It's transform. And then rotate 45 degrees. There we go. Now it's an X. And then let's also go back here. I removed the gap, which I shouldn't have done. Put a gap back on here, and we'll go 10px, something like that. So there's a little more space on it. And then let's, do I have, cool, I have cursor pointer here. Do I have any opacity? I don't. So I'll usually do utility classes like opacity, hover, 0.8 to 1, something like that. And then go opacity, 0.8. So it kind of grays it out a little bit. And then on hover, I'll put opacity of 1. Might make it a little more, maybe like 0.7, something like that. So now, see when I put my mouse over the X, it just a little bit of highlight there. And this can obviously change. You can make it grayer. You could do any kind of styling you want here with that hover. Okay. All right, so now I need to, on click of that, I need to do something, right? I need to remove this category from the list. Okay, and there's a couple of ways that we can do this, like everything. There's one, because I'm inside of a grid, I can actually use this, remove this from parent grid. I could also remove the object from the array manually using this. So I would go back up to that variable and remove it. And there's a couple of reasons to do one or the other. Because I'm setting the variable, when you click on this one, I'm setting that variable needs to be kept up to date, right? And actually, now that I'm thinking about that, I probably should have done that a little bit different. So we're going to go back and change it because it'll simplify. Basically, I want one source of truth. Right now, I kind of have two. I've got that variable that I'm setting up here as the source of truth. And then I also now have this display grid that's using that variable, but now I'm updating the grid directly. And so I really want to have one source of truth. So what I'm going to do is change that variable setup that we did here. I'll change it just a little bit. You'll see it's not that complicated to change it. And then that way I can just use this really simple remove this from the parent grid. So I'm going to use that one. And literally that's just going to modify that. Just remove it from the grid. And, oops, sorry, didn't mean to scroll. So now if I do this, it's removed. right? So I can just click on those and it removes it. Now notice when I hit Webflow again, it added Bildr back in, and that was because this is going to that variable which still has all 4 of them in it, right? So when I click any of them, it adds it all back in. So let's go change that. So instead of adding the whole thing and doing that merge here to it, what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy this, and then we'll come over here and actually let's stay over here. Just it'll be simpler to explain. So I've got this copied, and then I'm actually just going to delete this one. And instead what I'm going to do is set a variable here and put it back in order, set variable. So we'll call this category to add. And it's going to be on the parent page, category to add, and the value is going to be from a variable, I'm sorry, not from a variable, from current record field value, categories, category. Okay, so basically now what I'm going to do is when they click on this, instead of adding the, merging the array here and doing all that, all I'm going to do is send up to the parent a new category that needs to be added to the list. And then that category, then that'll run the flow that's on that page. And then now over on the create post page, that's where I'm going to do my merge. But I'm going to do the merge directly using the grid itself as the source of truth for that. So that way we're always going back to the grid for the source of the data for that. All right, so now let's go add selected category. And here, let me paste this. So this is that one that I had copied. So what I'm going to do is instead of on the parent page, I'm going to do the current page. And I'm still going to create a variable called selected categories. Merge key is still going to be, actually I don't need any of that. Ooh, I don't need any of that. I'm just going to replicate this same merge, but I'm going to do it inside the set element value. So watch this. Okay, so now we go merge, and the merge key is still going to be category, and the first one is still going to be a concatenate, where I'm going to manually set it all up. So category, same exact thing, like this, but I'm going to get it from that variable on the current page called category to add, because that's what I'm setting from the other page. Okay, so now there's my manual category. And then the array that I'm merging that with is actually going to be the grid itself. Right, so it's just going to take whatever is in the selected categories grid, add the one to add, and the merge, because I've got the category merge key, it'll always only add one of that same one. So now I don't even need that other one. I'm literally just doing it this way. So now I keep switching to the wrong screen. Okay, so now if I close, and then I add bubble back in, right? Remove bubble, remove glide, remove Bildr, add Bildr, add bubble, add Webflow, remove bubble, add glide, and now we've got it. Now the save will still work exactly as it did, except now the array is really simple, and we need to change on the create post in here this join keys with the field ID. Instead of the field ID, we're just going to say category, because that that array in there is just category now, right? It doesn't have the whole thing in it. So we'll just save that, and now we should be good to go. That should be all we need to do. So if I go test, and we can probably actually just remove this now. Yep. Just remove that. And you can format these cards however you want as well. Testing, and then I'm going to open the network just so I can see the output here. Click create. All right. So let's see. So it created it, and then it added it, and then it updated it with that. And so now we have just those 3 categories in there. There is another way to do this, which it depends on how you want to manage those categories long term. So the only problem with doing this is that because you're statically storing the string, the text of the name versus the ID of those categories, if you ever change, like say Webflow changes to Webflow 2, then that's only going to update for new categories. The existing category display will always be whatever you saved in it, right? Unless they go remove and add it back. So another way to do this instead might be to, instead of actually saving the category names, you save the category IDs. And then inside of here, instead of binding this directly to that, this one, instead of binding this directly to that variable, you would use a flow in the page binding. We would go set element value here, and I would set the category using a collection of categories where the ID is from a variable on the current page called category. Because if we're setting the category ID into there, I would probably change it to like category ID or something. But then we're going to get the actual category field from the one it finds and set it like this. So the thing about this way, then if you go modify the categories, these will automatically update going forward. Like they would just use the category ID to go find the current category name for that category and set it in new every single time. This is probably how I would suggest you do it, actually. So why don't we just change it? We'll just do it that way. All right, so we're going to go select category, and instead of category name, I'm going to do category like that, and I'm going to also change this to category ID to add, and we're going to use category ID everywhere instead of category, just so it's a little clearer what's happening there. Okay, so we're going to set that, and then over on this page, in the flow for the add selected category, we're going to say category ID instead, and that's coming from category ID to add, and this needs to be category ID as the merge key instead. And then over here, let's go ahead and remove this binding, and I think that's it. And then we can test it here because I think you have your categories, right? So we could come over here and add them in. So like I'll change Bildr after the fact. Let's see. Okay. I'm going to need to open this page again though because, well, actually I can just clear all that out. So Webflow. Sorry, I had a breakpoint in. Bubble. Oh, I've got something messed up there. Let me think. Oh, one more piece. There was one more piece where I didn't change the from category to category ID. It's looking for category to match, and that doesn't exist, so it's not working. So change that to category ID, and we should start to work. Okay, so we're still missing something though. Let's see. What is happening there? All right. Fence, select category. Category to add, I'm adding the ID. I run the flow. Then over here, add selected category. Merge key is category ID. category ID comes from category ID to add, and then we're taking what's already there. Let me just do this instead. Just make a new post because maybe it's just, did I do my binding wrong? No binding there. Flows, page binding, set value. Oh, it's right here. Category ID is what it needs to be, not category. So it's just always finding the first one is why. That's why I was finding Webflow every time. So if I close that, kill that, Bildr, bubble, Webflow, and so forth. I don't know, on the posts, we don't show categories here. So we won't really have a way to see that it worked. Because if we create a post here, like if I go, Bildr and bubble, and then put that in and hit create, we'll see that in the post, but I don't have the view set up there for all posts. Let's see. So we might have to come back and add that in as well for the all posts. I'm not sure exactly where you have that, but I think that pretty much gets you there. And you can kind of see, like, this is a normal process where you're going through and you kind of realize, like, oh, it'd be better to do it this way, or it might be better to do it that way, that kind of thing. So that's very normal. Yeah, so I think I did 3 different methods there on this one setup, but you should be good. You just need to style these into cards, basically, get this set of cards done, and probably clean up this one a little bit too, because it's probably not exactly how you want that small list of cards in there, but it's pretty close there. All right, let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.